Hey, it's James, Father's Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. I'm going to answer a question from a loyal follower, a guy named KT King on Instagram, asked me this question, and I know he's been following me since, even though I've had multiple Instagrams, he keeps finding me and following me, like the few loyal followers I have. Some people hit me up when I get my TikTok or Instagram banned. Like, where have you been? I've been looking for you for the past 6 months. I couldn't find you. That's why I say, this is James, hashtag how I got custody. When I talk about father's rights and resources, I always put the hashtag how I got custody because I'm only one in the world who uses that, except for Steve Maeda, who stole it from one of his videos. I'm the only one in the world who uses it. And that's how people can find me. But KT King on Instagram in the comments, he asked me, can you do a video on judges, pro tem judges, commissioners violating due process? So here's where I've kind of done bits and pieces on something like this. I tell you guys, you need to know the code of judicial conduct in your state. And if I make reference to something, a law in your state, a statute, or Troxel versus Granville, U.S. Supreme Court case, anytime I mention something to you, you should read every part of that too. Some people, well, a lot of people don't even read the stuff that I talk about, even though it's crucial to their case. I have a section on my flow page where all my links are in one spot. I have a section that says must see information. Okay. And I call that must see information. I call that section must see information because every dad must see that information in there. When I say something is important or you need it or I have this or I have that, I'm talking about something that you need to know. I'm not saying stuff just to say it for the fun of it. So back to this thing when a judge is violating due process. Now, that was kind of a vague question. There's a million ways to violate due process. Let's talk about, I had a guy talk to me today about, he wasn't, he looked on his docket and he has a restraining order coming up and the other side filed a motion and maybe another document or two, but he's never been served it. So we were talking, and I said, walk in there and tell them, I haven't even been served this stuff. They can't come into court and blindside me. They were requesting testimony from some therapist or counselor or something, probably that the mother was lying to and, brainwashing or slandering the father with. And so she wants to use her hand-picked counselor or therapist. So anyway, the mother has a restraining order hearing. She's requesting a witness. He's never been served her request. And so I'm saying, hey, look, I would the dad should go in there in that situation. I have a due process right under the fundamental fairness doctrine to be notified of a proceeding, and I have the right to be heard. The right to be heard, that second part of the fundamental fairness doctrine, that right to be heard also means a right to prepare a defense. You don't just get a talk. Like, they don't get to come in and dump a bunch of exhibits and information and witnesses against you and blindside you and railroad you and say, haha, I caught you off guard, I win. In criminal court, the prosecutor has to hand over discovery. That was one thing that was one knock against Kamala Harris when she was running. When she was a prosecutor, she hid discovery from the other side, and the other side could use that discovery to get a accused criminal, drug dealer, somebody possessing weed. She got knocked for prosecuting a lot of people of color for weed possession. One guy was on death row, and she hid discovery from him. And it isn't necessarily just her, but her office that she was overseeing as a prosecutor. So they have to hand that stuff over. That's part of getting ready for a hearing. Like in the O.J. Simpson trial. O.J. Simpson knew all the evidence they were going to use against him. There's a famous part where he puts on the glove and it doesn't fit. He might have tried it out already. You get a chance to see the evidence against you. It isn't, you can't get blindsided. The more legal principles and rights that you know, the more you will know how to argue your rights. So the code of judicial conduct, the fundamental fairness doctrine, You need to know that the courts are courts of fairness and equity. Do you think it's equitable for one side to be able to go and sneak and do the element of surprise and throw out evidence the day of the hearing? If a judge is allowing one side to talk and submit evidence and you can't talk, they're violating your fundamental fairness doctrine. Here's another thing. If you know Troxel versus Granville, and see, the more that you know and read and absorb this stuff, the more you can come up with your own argument. You don't even have to listen to my stuff. The first thing I want people to do is go read everything for themselves. I'm not here saying you have to say this and you have to say that. I'm talking about stuff that's worked for many other people. I worked at a law firm. I won in my own court case. You could see my winning orders on my flow page. Maybe I'll add a little picture of what I'm talking about on my flow page. I tried to add a picture and it didn't let me edit it and put it in here. At the end of this video, I'll put in my flow page where there's a section for must-see information and the section for my winning orders or proof of my wins. So I've won in court against veteran attorneys. And this is the thing that just goes over a guy's head. You're talking to or listening to and looking at somebody who won in court over and over again. And I'm one of you. And I still got haters saying that I'm full of crap and I show you my winning orders. What more else do you want? What else do you want me to do? The reason a lot of people hate me is because I tell them, grow some balls, be a man. The court system is corrupt. That means you have to put in an extra effort and fight the right way for your kids. And if you're not doing that, you're being a punk-ass little coward. Because in a war isn't fair. Somebody bombs somebody without them knowing. Nobody comes in and tells you, hey, we're going to do 9/11 on you. Hey, we didn't tell the Japanese we're going to drop the atomic bomb. Nobody warns anybody. They blindside them, and then it's time to go to war and pick up your weapon and fight. It's kill or be killed. And people don't like that because people are pussies, and they want everything to be fair and perfectly equitable in regular life, and it's not. We live in a corrupt world. We live in a fallen world. It's not going to be... there's no equitable outcomes for people in real life. Okay, we try and make equality as equal as possible, but not every housewife wants to be in the workforce. So feminists have to fight even women who don't want to be in the workforce. You know, the WNBA wants to be, all the players in the WNBA want to be paid what they deserve or what's owed to them. Well, the WNBA lost $40 million last year. So if they wanted to be paid what's owed to them, that would be in the negative. So they would have to pay back the WNBA their entire salary and more to pay back the NBA for their welfare. Anyway, so the due process stuff, in the Code of Judicial Conduct, the preamble to it, it says that our justice system is a foundation of our society. If the justice system falls apart, so does our society. They say our democracy. We're a representative constitutional republic. But either way, society falls apart if the justice system falls apart. And the preamble doesn't just say the justice system. This is why you guys have to read. A lot of people read and they gloss over stuff and they don't absorb it. And they ask me the same question about the same thing over and over again. You have to read the stuff word for word. Because if there's a word in there, the court shall do this or shall do that, then you could tell the judge, the courts, this rule or this law or this case law says you have to do this. And you're not the one telling them what to do. It's what the higher court precedent is. It's what the Supreme Court is telling them or their own rules are telling them. So, if a judge is supposed to maintain the public's confidence in the judicial system. If the confidence is destroyed, then society is destroyed. It's not even that the judicial system completely falls apart. It's the public's confidence in it. So you could tell the judge, hey, you need to maintain the public's confidence in the judicial system. You're supposed to give me my fundamental fairness doctrine. Right. This is a court of fairness and equity. It's not fair for them to be able to come in and blindside me and tell their side and I don't get to present evidence. And we're dealing with Troxel versus Granville. I have a constitutional right to the care and custody of my kids. You cannot interfere with that unless you have a narrowly drawn compelling interest. What is that? Make a finding of fact. See, you can make a million arguments when you know the foundational stuff. If you know that you have the right of way at an intersection, you know when they have those little islands at an intersection and they may not have stop signs, so you got to, you got to yield to the other person. If this person over here, that person over here, that person over here is jumping in, you could point out you're wrong, because this is what the rule is. And you make the judge feel as stupid as possible with all these things you know, so they will be embarrassed to continue to violate.